Welcome back. That song you hear in the background is the Liberty fight song, which I'm still getting used to. I've heard it a few times at football games in the fall. We're the Patriot Fan Zone because Max Kattwinkel, as we've talked about, is the Executive Athletic Director for both Lubbock Cooper and Liberty. Liberty they have grown so quickly in what they're successful at. A lot of those coaches, when I talk to them, I don't know if Caitlin Anderson's name is a 4-letter word out there, because right off the bat last fall in volleyball, they just start winning. They win their district. They go 3 or 4 rounds deep. Went to the regional tournament at the time.
Last year?
No, the year before, in year one.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So all of a sudden now everybody thinks, well, let me rephrase that. A lot of folks outside the school walls think, well, that's what we're going to do. Mm-hmm. That was a little bit tricky. It took some other programs some time to kind of figure that out. But this year, you guys, girls basketball tied for the district championship. Parker Hicks had those boys right there. The only reason they didn't win a district championship is because there was a pretty good team that they had to play twice that wound up in the state semifinals in Estacado. Baseball teams won their district championship. You guys, the Liberty folks, the Liberty kids, the Liberty coaches have taken that Lubbock Cooper formula and that level of expectations and just run with it.
They have. They've done a good job. Those kids, I think they're just used to that level of competition, just because our freshmen and sophomores that started that campus are they played for Lubbock Cooper and played that 5A competition, and so they know what it's like. And then the middle school, even if they're coming from the middle school, they play all the 5A and Friendship 6A programs, and so the level of competition didn't really make them blink too much. So it's just what they battled with early was just numbers and being able to have depth against older people, athletes, and but they've done remarkably well, like you said, for year 2, and the success that they're having in multiple sports is a bonus, and it's a positive.
The only thing they couldn't do right off the bat was be older. And I don't, because when you saw them as 14 and 15-year-olds, they looked like 14 and 15-year-old kids. Mm-hmm. I tell Joe all the time that when I went into the school at the beginning of the year, they had the baby faces and weren't built like kids who had been in the weight room. And then by the end of last year, I saw a couple of their football guys at the baseball playoffs. I was like, who are these guys? Because they had dedicated themselves. They couldn't be older. And that's a difference, not just physically, but also I think it was either Caitlin Anderson or Morgan Glassby who pointed this out. When you're at Laura Bush or Lubbock Cooper Middle School, you're not game planning. You're not looking at game film. You're practicing, you're playing a game, you're going home. And then Parker pointed this out. In middle school, you know exactly when the season's going to stop. You don't think about getting to they've had to kind of mature and think about things differently as high school athletes.
100%. It's long, and the seasons are longer. The amount of games played, they're more, and so that's a definite learning curve. The other thing I don't think a lot of people realize is this is the first true off season that campus has had. They were working out of a weight room with basically 6 racks. That was in the basement of our basketball area.
It's like the athletic version of Wayne's World.
Yeah, I mean, and so they never were able to get a true off season, and so this is the first time they are benefiting from that. All sports, not just football. I mean, they're going through a true off season, and our facilities are done, and so I think that's going to play a big part of it as well going forward.
The facilities, you hit the nail on the head there. Joe was such a proud papa when that football stadium opened. Football struggled. They finished 2-8. Joe was on last week or 2 weeks ago, and it's like, I can't remember who it was, Bill Parcells or some famous coach said, you are what your record says you are. Mm-hmm. They were 2-8. There's no dancing around that. They're very close to being a little bit different. But he said that the difference was when that stadium opened, when the weight room opened, that you could kind of see kids take some ownership and take a little bit more pride, and now that's going to start to pay off because now they do have that off season. The baseball kids, instead of having to drive to South Lubbock and play on a rec field, go outside to that beautiful new stadium, baseball and softball. So yeah, it's a process, but the good news is all those guys, all those girls get to be back for one more year at least.
Yes, and I think next year is going to be a big year for them. They've had success, like you pointed out, but what's everyone's fixing to see next year is a big growth leap, and I think you're going to see even more success.
Well, and I mentioned this, we're coming up on the break, but we'll come back. I told you who two of my favorite coaches out there to watch. I like to get along with all of them, but we're going to talk about the ones I like when we come back on the Patriot Fan Zone on 100.7 The Score.
Bringing you the latest news from Liberty Athletics. This is the Patriot Fan Zone podcast from 100.7 The Score.
Welcome into the last segment of the show. Wanted to make sure Max knew he's almost off the hook here. Before the break, I mentioned, again, I have great relationships with all the Liberty coaches. Enjoy watch Parker. Parker Hicks. I do enjoy watching him coach as well. But there's two coaches that you and Joe brought in to Liberty that literally, when I wake up in the morning and I know I'm going to cover one of their games, I'm excited. That's Caitlin Anderson, the volleyball coach, and Morgan Glaspie, who just was incredible. Am I right? She coached a playoff game on a Tuesday and had a baby 2 days later.
Yeah.
The male species has no idea what those coaches go through in those situations. But just watching those two coach, because there is absolutely zero left on the sleeve when those two are coaching.
It is. You're talking about Morgan, and it may have been you, Randy, taking that picture or one of your photogs, but there's a picture of her in that last game, and she's getting down and trying to get her girls to play defense.
Yep.
And she's got, her pregnancy and all of that. I'm just like, man, that girl is tougher than I am, for sure.
She texted me afterwards, and she said, you should have taken the picture of me needing help to get up after that.
But, I think the two young ladies you're talking about, I think, and Caitlin, I coached her when she ran track for me and absolutely hated me and for making her run track. But she was such a gifted athlete that we kind of encouraged her to do that. But she's a great volleyball player as well, obviously. But both of those young ladies, I think, they're tough.
Yes.
They're tough, but they're empathetic coaches, if that makes any sense. They expect a lot from their kids, but they also build relationships with them and have empathy for what they're going through, and because they've been through it as well. So,
and I don't want to leave Keelan Ellison out of that discussion too, because the same thing. She was the only reason she didn't go from coaching a game to having her baby is because she actually had a baby that day.
Yes.
And your sister-in-law stepped it. I tell her all the time she's risen very quickly on my list of favorite Dardens, because when you can take over in that situation and do what Kendall did with that team, that's pretty impressive.
Both of those coaches, they work so well together and are fantastic coaches. Kendall has done that twice for us with Bridget Rogers over at Lubbock Cooper High School, and she stepped in on both occasions and hasn't missed a beat. Doesn't want the limelight, but just is a fantastic coach and has done a really good job. But yeah, Keelan's amazing, and both of those two have really built a program that is going to continue to get better.
I told her I would give her brother-in-law and your brother-in-law a little bit of grief here. Chip Darden, you need to start showing up at playoff soccer matches instead of watching basketball, because I saw your wife, I saw the matriarch of the Dardens there. I saw a lot of family members there, and I said, "Where's Chip?" And Kendall said, "He stayed home to watch basketball."
March Madness, Randy.
March Madness,
come on,
I get
man.
it.
Come on.
And now that I think about it, Chuck may have been with him too. So I want to make sure we do get this in before we finish. We run out of time. The last thing I asked you about Lubbock Cooper was where they may wind up realignment-wise in 10 months here. What's it look like for Liberty?
Well, I think, they're going to just, with their first 4 classes, they're going to be a full high school, four-class high school next year. The thing that's going to keep them down into 4A, which is a positive, but their senior class is pretty small,
Yes.
and that's going to help them stay down for probably 1 or maybe 2 more alignments, but they're definitely going to jump from a Division II to Division I.
And the good news there for them is they're going to have another city rival starting next year, because Memorial's going to be in that same district, at least in everything but football next year, and then maybe in football after that.
Yeah, I'm hoping, and I think everybody is in Lubbock, is that Friendship High School maybe drops down to 5A, and then Memorial will be a 4A along with Liberty and Estacado, and so we can have some Lubbock districts and get some good rivalries going there and good people to work with.
I know as the guy who runs that website, that would be fine with me. That's a little bit less wear and tear on the road, because you get those, what it would be, 5 or 6 teams in one district. That's a lot of Tuesdays, Fridays, and volleyball and basketball season where you don't have to go very far.
Exactly.
Max, thanks you for coming in. We've been trying to do this for a while. We're going to have to do it again maybe in the fall. Maybe get you to come in with both your football coaches and talk a little bit. It's going to wrap us up this week on the High School Fan Zone. We'll be back Monday with the LISD coaches and players. This is Randy Rosetta on 100.7 The Score.